Hello world, so we are going to resume where we left off. We left off at this point, but we need to get to this point. So without further ado, let's get started. So for us to be able to apply any styling to our HTML page, we need to create a style sheet. And a style sheet is what is known normally as CSS, like cascading style sheets. So it is where you get to apply all the colors that you need, the sizing, the positioning of different HTML elements. Okay, so we can start by creating an index .css. So it should have the extension of CSS. There are very many variants and they are known as preprocessors for CSS, such as SAS and such as less. There are so many. But for our case, we are simply going to be using CSS, okay? And then once we create it, we add it to our HTML page by appending it to our head section. And for us to do that, you recall when we added the favicon, we were given auto suggestions including the CSS. So all we need to do is to type that link and then we go down and simply hit enter on the CSS part, or you can just select it with your mouse, okay? Then you will see that you are automatically given the rel is style sheet and then the href is a style.css. But for our case, the name that we have gone with is index.css. So you can have any name for your style sheet so long as you remember to include the right name right here, okay? Then we save it. So once we save it, we can now be able to start adding styles. So let's try something out. Like for example, we style our HTML, we give it a background color of red. Okay, so everything changes to red. So to make our lives easier, I will just move this to the bottom right here so that we can have both index HTML and index CSS visible, okay? Then we start now selecting. Remember when we mentioned the ability to select either a class or an ID? So this is where this will apply really heavily. So the first thing we need to do is to simply check the structure of our page. In our case, we have two top level elements in our body section. The first one is the content, the other one is the footer. But then these two are actually children of the body, and the body is actually a child of the HTML. So what you want to do is to first of all give both the body and the HTML a height of 100% and then a width of 100%, okay? So the height is simply how much vertical space the element will occupy. So the height can be of a percentage, it can be of a pixel, it can be of a M, it can be of a rem, there are so many. And it can also be a VH, okay? But in our case, we will just simply give it a percentage so that it occupies the whole percent of the browser that is available, okay? All right, so the width, the same logic applies to that one. You can give it the different dimensions. All right, okay, so now we can actually start and we say dot content. Why dot content? You remember when we were creating elements here? Maybe that will help clear things out. We were typing div dot something, okay? Dot something right here. And then when we hit enter, the class actually is given that value of something. But if we type div and then we say hash something and then we hit enter, you see it's given the ID. All right, so the same also applies here in CSS. So for us to style our content section, which has a class, we just do dot content, and then for the footer, the same logic applies. All right, so we can do that, and then we say this will now be footer, but we need to also add, let's say, like we could add actually comments right here. So we say styling of the content section, and then right here we just say styling of the footer section. Okay, so what I like doing, and maybe this is my preference, we can start by actually isolating each and every logical unit, like for example divs and so forth. We can do this by simply collapsing or expanding using this greater than. So we copy this, then we come and we put it there, and then because there's also section 2, we simply do that. All right, then when we expand this, we see that we have a header section right here, and also we have a form section. So we have in section 1, we have a header, and also we have a form right here. Okay, then when we expand the header, we see that we have a title, And also we have instructions right here. Okay, then we also have in the header part action button. This header action, it also has children inside it, and the first one is an icon and the second one is an instruction, which is this. Okay, and then we have section 1 form now. So the behavior is the same, so let me just add them and then we'll pick from there, but I believe you have the gist of the flow. Okay. Okay, so now we already have all the other additional classes in our CSS. So they are not so many. And then the other thing I want you to note is that you have separated them just as we said. The content section ends here and then the footer section starts here. So we add the stylings for the footer. But you also have another part for the shared styling. You remember we were saying that things that belong to a class, they can have same behavior. So that's why we have them like this. So you have a success or error image, and you also have an error class, which you will see later on. I believe it's somewhere right here. Let me check. Error. Yeah, this one. The errors, they'll have the same look and feel. Okay. So before we begin styling content, it will be best to get things ready by setting our colors. Our colors for the background, for example, our colors for the text, our colors for the borders, and so forth and so forth. I always prefer setting colors or think of them as themes at the very start of your style sheet. That way you'll be able to know this color, if I need it, for example, based on the provided design, I'll simply be picking it instead of having to go back and forth to the design. So we'll start by adding our colors here at the top.